Good afternoon, everyone. Hope you're all having a wonderful Wednesday. On behalf of Rise Analytics, we would like to welcome you all to this webinar titled Behind the Data, Meet the Mission Control Team Powering Your Credit Union's Success. Today, we have with us Rise Analytics Executive Director, Paolo Teotino, as well as our VP of Strategic Consulting, Dan Price. During the session, Paolo and Dan will introduce you to the Rise Analytics team, which consists of dedicated experts in member services, lending, payments, collections, compliance, and operations. But before we jump in, we would like to go through a few housekeeping items. First, this webinar is being recorded and it will be made available to all after the session concludes. Second, due to the large attendance, the phone lines have been muted. And lastly, we want to hear from you. There will be a Q&A at the end of the conversation. If you think of any questions during the duration of this webinar, please feel free to type them in the Q&A box and we will do our best to answer. You can also answer yes to the poll that is on the screen right now, and one of our team members will reach out to you soon after the webinar concludes to discuss the topics within this session. Thank you again for being here for this Rise Analytics webinar. Without further delay, here's Paolo and Dan.
Thank you, Cassie. Good afternoon, everyone. Good morning to those of you that are on the West Coast. This is Paolo Teotino, as Cassie said, Executive Director of Rise Analytics, and I'm with me, Dan Price, VP of Strategic Consulting. So today we'll go through a quick overview about what Rise Analytics is, a kind of relatively new brand in the market, even though our legacy goes back to 1989. And we'll get into some details of some example of how Rise Analytics is really helping credit unions to drive business outcome from the use of data. So with no further ado, I'll start my presentation. And again, as a bit of an intro, you know that we are based Rise Analytics is based in Tampa, which is not too far away from Cape Canaveral. It's about 100 miles away in line of sight to Cape Canaveral. So we kind of decided for this webinar to have a little bit of a team, which is kind of space mission team. So you will see the rest of the presentation that will be kind of carrying on these kind of teams, and we'll try to kind of connect the mission of empowering credit union to use data to drive business performance, which is really the mission of Rise Analytics, with the team of space missions and the complexity of having a successful space mission nowadays. Even though, you know, it's kind of common knowledge that now sending a rocket to space, it seems like a pretty easy task. There have been multiple launches over the last few days. I think 2 days ago, there was the first launch of Kuiper satellite constellation, done by Jeff Bezos. Not long ago, a few days ago, I guess probably a week ago, there was the first team of women in space, and sending either things or people to space. It seems to be like a very trivial task today, but in reality, it's not. And there is a lot of complexity, a lot of planning behind the scene, and the same thing applies to data. I mean, using data to drive business decision seems easy and trivial, but once you get into the details, it's a very complex activity that requires a lot of planning and a lot of expertise. So that's why we thought that having this connection is something that could resonate well, with our audience. I also have a little bit of rocket here with me, just to remind me every day how difficult it is to send somebody in space and to use data, for the success of our organization and our client base. So with that being said, let me jump into really what is the value of data for the financial industry. I mean, this is it's not something new, but I think it's worth to spend just a couple of minutes to restate, as I said, that using data is really a table stake right now for any financial institution, and I would say for any organization in today's market. It is using data. It's also referred as data is the new oil for companies. And as crude oil, data needs to be extracted, needs to be refined, needs to be manipulated, and then needs to be shared in order to really allow like the recipients or the decision maker to transform data into insights and the insight then can be transformed into decision to be able to react promptly to changing environment conditions or like changing competitive landscapes or like changing member or customer behaviors. So the use of data is very important, and credit unions and financial institutions in general are really sitting on a gold mine of data. Data coming from core banking system contains a lot of information about your member, contains a lot of transactional data, and then recently over the course of the year 2000, the adoption of digital banking, the adoption of mobile banking has really expanded the amount of data that are available to credit unions. And by accessing digital banking application, you can have a much more granular understanding of the products and services that are relevant for your members. How many times they're accessing your systems, what kind of transaction they do, and many more. So having access to the what we call ancillary data in addition to the core banking system data, it is really important. But this is only representing like the building block of the future. I mean, today and even more importantly in a short future, the use of AI, Gen AI powered engine or even machine learning relies on the use of big data. So you need to have a big data pool that are going to be large data sets that are like located in data pools that can be used and can be used by Gen AI or AI related application to really accelerate the transformation of your organization. And even in the future, I mean, this is happening today, frankly speaking. I mean, there are a lot of credit unions now that are tipping their toes into adoption of AI, and without data, really AI doesn't really work or doesn't really met. Is not really able to meet the expectation that the market has about the use of AI-powered solution. And in the future, I think this need will be even more important with the coming of real-time seamless banking, which also is it's also known as hyper-personalized banking, or soon with the open banking requirements that will be endorsed in the United States as well. The need of not only having data in a large data pool, but also the need of exchanging data and moving data from one data pool that may be owned by a financial institution or credit union to another data pool that is owned by a third party, which may be another financial institution or even like a fintech provider, will be a requirement. So not only creating those data pools, but also implementing those the mechanism that will allow an easy and seamless movement of data is going to be extremely important for the success of the credit union organizations. So the credit unions or the financial institution, they are able to maximize the this kind of the potential of using the data as like a fuel to propel their business, will be able to kind of lift off and generate a significant upside potential that will allow them to have a completely different perspective on their business. So that's why I think the analogy between space missions and data journey is very close to our heart. It's like if you are on Earth, you have a limited perception. If you are in space, then you can have a completely different perception of what is surrounding around you and also of what is like our planet. And the same will apply to the organization that will be really able to exploit the potential of data. If you have access to data, you may have a completely different perception of your business, of your member base, and the behavior of your member. So that will allow you to have a kind of unique positioning and a unique perspective that will definitely support the generation of successful business outcome. As I said, I mean, organizations that actually can leverage the power of data can lift off their performance has a huge impact in terms of improving their bottom line, but also more importantly, improving their member expectation, the customer expectation, if we extend beyond the financial institution industry or the credit union industry. So here's some data that I found out of a Harvard Business Review analysis survey that they did during COVID-19 crisis among 360 executives across multiple industries. So we are not just looking at the credit union in this case, we are just not looking at the financial institution industry, but this is across multiple industry and mainly across like a large organization. Fortune 500 companies, they were essentially considering themselves pretty versed in the use of data. And those are some of the examples of performance improvement that those organizations were able to achieve: 77% revenue lift, 81% operational efficiency, and so on. So, I mean, the numbers speak by themselves, and I think it's very important to understand that. And this is particularly true in a situation like in this case, COVID-19 crisis was, if you remember, it was only 5 years ago, but feels like, it was like, I don't know, a generation ago. But, the world was a very different place. We were totally unsure about what was supposed to happen, in the next few weeks. I remember the time COVID was supposed to last like 2 weeks and then a month and then like, a couple of months, and then it ended up like actually multiple years, and the organization were really not aware of what to do. So the organization, they actually had data at their fingertips, and they were able to assess their performance on a daily basis using data. They definitely had like an edge versus others that were like not able to have real-time access to data, real-time decision making, especially under critical conditions like COVID-19 was. And I think if you fast forward to today, thanks God, we are not in the same kind of critical situation about health. But there are other uncertainty right now in our economy. The tariffs, how the economy is going to react to tariffs. We just saw today that for the first time in many years, the GDP of the United States was actually declining. So it's very difficult for an organization to kind of make plans. So having access to the data, having access to the pulse of your business, it is going to be very, very important. Even today, that we are not dealing with a health crisis anymore, but we are dealing with much more uncertainty in our economic environment. So we don't know how the member will react to a more challenging financial conditions or economy. So I think it would be very important for credit unions in particular to have like the pulse of their members at their fingertips. Unfortunately, despite the importance of having access to data to drive business decision, data, it's not an easy journey. I mean, an organization that wants to start the data journey, unfortunately, many times have like challenges, and they may actually not able to kind of fully exploit the full potential of their data. Again, going back to the other business review I was mentioning just a moment ago, out of those organizations that responded, only 45% of them will actually give themselves a rating of 7 or higher on a scale of 0 to 10. And we are talking about large organization, Fortune 100 company, and only almost 50% of them were actually well considering themselves pretty versed on data, but the remaining 50% were actually not there yet. And we are talking again large organizations. So if you translate these into credit unions, where we know the large majority of the credit union industry are small or medium credit unions, this is I would assume the percentage is even lower than that. And there are multiple reasons why fulfilling the promises of like data analytics is challenging for many organizations. It's because of some of the traps that are along the way of your data journey. Here you can see the most kind of common traps that we have experienced with many of our the many organizations are working with us. Data, first of all, is spread across hundreds of data source systems. Many organizations, I would say all organizations, do not have like a single source of truth for their data, but the data resides across multiple silos, and those silos are not talking to each other. So it becomes extremely difficult to extract the data and create the data lakes that I was referring before. The data pipelines, so process to move data from one silo to another are like very manual. There are no standardization, no process that will allow like this data transfer, which is very important because we don't want to completely supersede the silos. So the silos will be there because the silos are the application, the multiple application used by financial institution and credit union in particular. But you want to be able to kind of migrate the data in those applications into a data lake that allows a much more comprehensive view of your business. Data quality and control are sporadic at best, and they are very manual. So having data that is consistent across different organizations or different departments within the same organization it's a big challenge. Therefore, reporting it's inconsistent. It's actually one of the main reasons why credit union kind of reach out to Rise. One of the first concern is like we are not able to have consistent reporting for our board. We are not able to have consistent reporting for our management team. Many of our clients started the journey without even knowing the precise number of members that they had that they were serving, because different departments have different definition of members or different count of the member base. And as you can imagine, I mean, having inconsistent data, especially at the management level, it's a big problem that may generate inefficient way of inefficient strategy to maximize the opportunity that you have ahead of you. And then last but not least, the talent required to extract data, manipulate data, transform data. It's a very costly and it's very scarce resource. I'm not even thinking about data science. Data scientists are like the next level of resources. I'm talking about here people that actually can, like business analyst or reporting analyst can develop some sort of a process or basic reporting capability for credit unions to be able to have like some sort of reporting that they can use for internal decision-making process. This talent is scarce and it's resource. And then if you want, once you move into more complex data analytics like machine learning and predictive analytics, then you will require data scientists, which is extremely expensive. So that's a really a big challenge that the credit union industry as a whole is facing. And that's one of the reasons why very few and most likely large organizations are the ones that are really able to maximize the opportunity, the data opportunity. In a nutshell, that's the reason why we created Rise Analytics. So Rise Analytics, the mission of the company is really kind of support the credit union industry to drive, and by doing so, it's essentially leveraging the power of data. Our mission is really help credit union to use data, and not only use data, but also convert data into insights to drive business outcomes. So that's really what we do, and that's really what we kind of are proud to be able to support our customer along the data analytics journey. Rise is a relatively new organization. The brand has been announced at the last GSE in March 2025. As I said at the beginning, our legacy with the credit union industry and our involvement and commitment with the credit union industry goes back to 1989, when the company was called CSU, Card Services for Credit Union, where we're essentially a payment provider for the credit union industry. And then in 2017, the company transformed into Trellance, became like a data analytic company, a cooperative company owned by credit union for the benefit of the credit union industry. Then in 2021, Trellance solution portfolio grew, and we were at the time we were able to offer like 3 different type of services: analytics, staff augmentation, and professional services. And then the third line of business was the IT cloud operation services for credit union. And then in 2025, our holding company, Trellance Cooperative Holding, decided to kind of spin off 3 different organizations from the 3 business units that we had available, where Rise Analytics is the company fully owned by Trellance Cooperative Holding, which is fully dedicated to work with credit union only to support their data strategy, helping them to convert data into insights, into business outcome. So despite the fact that we changed names and legal entities over the last 35 plus years, there is really one thing that never changed for us, is like our commitment and passion for the credit union industry, and our goal of really helping credit union and their member to have a fulfilling and successful financial life. At Rise, we do through the use of data, and the maximization of the opportunity the credit union have with using data. Adoptiri, which is the other company focusing on cloud ID ops, we do through hosting, providing hosting services and security service to credit unions. The last company, which is part of the Trellis Corporate Holding ecosystem, is called ProBridge, which is the talent company that we offer. We help credit union to fill their kind of talent gap that they may have across multiple domains. But again, we are fully dedicated helping credit union industry to succeed and thrive. Again, continuing with our kind of metaphor on the space missions, at Rise, we understand that credit union is different. As I said, I mean, we deal with like hundreds of credit union every year, and we know that despite everybody has the same mission, kind of helping the member to be successful in their financial life, there are nuances in each credit union, mainly because of the charter or for other reasons. And at the same time, at Rise, we adapted the same approach, and we have customized a very flexible approach to help the different types of credit unions. So the credit unions more mature in their data analytic journey. We offer them like self-analytics services. So we have a very robust platform of product and services that they can use and they can leverage as part of the internal processes for the benefit of that credit union. Those mainly apply to large credit union that have like, significant team that is very well versed on using data. And therefore, the only thing they need from us is really the technology that is powering the data analysis. For other credit unions that are looking for a more collaborative approach, we offer them more kind of a combination of our technology plus our expertise, which is really what we're going to discuss today with Dan and his team. We'll provide you several examples of how we are combining our technology and our expertise to really help the credit union that are in the middle of their data analytic journey to really maximize the opportunity and the investment that they are doing kind of in data. And then for the third approach is mainly related to kind of a targeted small credit union that they may not have like the internal team or resources available to start complex data analytic project. So they're just looking for like quick wins and potential, solution, fully outsourced solution that can help them to kind of address specific problem that they may be facing, either on the payment domain or on the member domain or the lending domain. Then we essentially we take over the work from the credit union, and we deliver the outcome of our work, our analysis, and then the credit union is essentially just leveraging the benefit of our expertise and our platform. So these are three different approaches that we offer. The vast majority, and frankly, what we would like really, where we're seeing like the great part of our success is the approach, number two, which is the collaborative partnership. Because as I said, using data is a journey, and even the most advanced credit union can always have, areas of opportunities that are not really fully exploited, or may have some, areas of opportunities that they're not fulfilling. And this is where our team of experts, as well as our knowledge from the work that we're doing with other credit union, can be really handy and can help them to maximize the investment that they are doing in data and also in kind of the services they are buying from Rise. As in any space mission, you need to have a control panel. Sorry about that. Control panel, which is essentially providing you a visibility of all the different systems and how the system is performing, just to be able to understand if there is some sort of criticalities that you need to tackle before it's too late or before like the mission could be in a critical status. So this is our platform. We call it the control panel of our space missions, which is essentially a very flexible yet modular platform that help credit union transform your data capability with two very sound, robust technology stack, which is using best of breed technology system available in the market, which have been kind of complemented with our proprietary technology and expertise to be able to help credit union to have automated data ingestion and preparation capability, We can provide out-of-the-box yet customizable reporting that can help credit union to have access to data and insights from day one. And also, we have built-in governance and security, which is helping credit union to have the certainty that their data, even though it's hosted in the cloud, is fully secure, and they are the only one accessing the data and the member information. So these allow the credit union to focus on their business rather than focusing on the complexity of ingesting, extracting, transforming, or processing like the crude oil or the crude data into insights. We do that work behind the scene in collaboration with the credit unions, and the credit union, a different stakeholder within the credit union, either being in the IT department or data analysts or even the business users, have access to reports and that it can be actually out of the box or can be fully customizable directly by the end users. So you can have the pulse of your business at your fingertips. As I said before, like the technology is important. I mean, we won't be able to send like somebody in the space without the technology, without having the power to do so, and the energy to do the lift off and all the control panel and the mechanism to ensure that the trajectory is not getting out of control. But at the same time, expertise, it's very important. With the technology, we know expertise, you're not going to achieve the desired outcome. That's the reason why astronauts are spending months, if not a year, training on the technology. And you don't want to have like somebody accessing, using your data without really having like the proper expertise and the proper training, to be able to maximize the opportunity that you can extract from your data. That's why we call it our flight plan. That's why we have developed a very comprehensive approach to help our credit union to clients to really embrace this approach to use data across the journey, the entire organizational journey. So we start, and there are three critical member of this flight plan that I'd like to kind of mention to you. The first one is the client ambassador. So as soon as the credit union is starting their onboarding process with RISE, the first person they will be meeting will be a client ambassador. A client ambassador will be essentially working with the credit union executive team, understanding their expectation, understanding their challenges, understanding like what are like the key problems that they're trying to solve using data. And that will make sure that there is a 100% alignment between like their expectation and the capability of the platform and the capability that the data analytics platform can actually deliver. Then it will be also responsible ultimately about the customer experience and success. And we'll be working with the implementation manager, which is a PMP certified professional that will be responsible for the technical implementation of a different solution that the client is deploying. The implementation manager is a more technical resource that is working with a client ambassador to make sure that the overall experience of the customer is meeting the expectation according to the original plan and according to the original expectation of the client. And then last but not least, when the implementation is completed, actually even before the implementation is completed, there is a team that we call the client adoption team, which is a team of a seasoned credit union executive that are now working for RISE that will take over the relationship with the client, after the implementation, and will work with the client on a regular basis to make sure that the client is using the platform and also is leveraging the expertise that the client adoption team has, as well as is maximizing the opportunity that we are discovering with other clients that are using similar services. So the client adoption team, and this is what really Dan is responsible for, and his team, primary focus are the dedication, making sure that the customer is maximizing the opportunity, maximizing the investment, and it's ongoing support during not only the implementation, the final stage of implementation, but also during the duration of the business relationship. We RISE there are regular checkpoint and regular discussion with our client to make sure that the initial expectations are met and or exceeded by the combination of our technology as well as our expertise. So with no further ado, I'll pass the baton to Dan Price that will walk us through really kind of the focus of the remaining of the presentation, which would be the client adoption team that we also call a strategic consultant team, and Dan will kind of provide more details and example of how our client adoption team is really supporting the credit union on the data analytics journey. So Dan, back to you.
Thank you, Paolo. Yeah, my name is Dan Price, and I lead the strategic consulting team here at Rise. And you see our team here, or your mission control team on the screen. I want to start with a quote that says, "The goal is not to be successful. The goal is to be valuable. Once you're valuable, instead of chasing success, it will attract itself to you." And that is the goal of our team, is to provide value to credit unions. We ran a poll at the start of the presentation that said, do you want to be contacted by an expert from our team? And I'm not sure if I'm supposed to share the results of that poll with you, but generally speaking, there weren't a lot of yeses. And my goal is to, hey, I'd click no too, so no pressure there, but to flip some of those to you contacting us. So I will start by saying this strategic consulting team that we've built, we're not salespeople. Strategic consultant is not some low-key way of us sliding in a salesperson into here. And the strategic consulting team is something that Rise has created as a no-cost service to our clients. And if you've started reading the profiles of these strategic consultants, basically what we've done is built ourselves a little miniature credit union inside of Rise Analytics, where we're covering member service and marketing. That's a former chief marketing officer. We're covering lending with a chief lending officer. We've got a payments expert. I myself have never worked for a credit union, but I've been working with credit unions for about 15 years. I'm a CPA, CFA, former financial statement auditor, so able to handle most questions in the regulatory and compliance realm. And then we have Amanda Emery, who's our client ambassador, but also operations expert. So we have you covered here with our mission control team. And as Paolo said, Rise Analytics offers software. We offer software covering data warehousing and predictive modeling, among other things. But there are challenges, that we face as credit unions with software tools. Things that I've heard people say about software tools, things that I've said myself, even about good software tools, represent some of those challenges. The most common and all-encompassing of those things is the tool is great, but we don't have time to use it, right? We're focused on making loans. We're focused on member experience. How are we going to fold another software tool into the development here? Maybe I start to learn how to use a tool. I get pulled away from it. I forget everything that I learned, because that happens when you're not in something every day. And what we've built are a team of expert software users that are also business users within the credit union organization, or have experience as business users. And that's something that you don't find commonly when you're looking for data people that understand both the data side of it and the business context behind that data. That's what we're here for. We hear people say things like, I don't know what this KPI means because I don't know how it looks relative to other credit unions, or I don't know how other credit unions are using this tool. You now have the benefit of the experience of that data person that understands the business context, but they also are looking at data for dozens, if not more, different credit unions, and can share you those peer data points and how other credit unions are using the tools. So we benefit not only from knowing the tools and the business context, but we benefit from the relevant experience of all of our clients that we get to learn from every day. We serve as that support mechanism, the expert support mechanism, as far as using and understanding the data. And we do this at at no cost to the credit union. But what I'd hate to have happen is for everyone to go back to their credit union teams and say, hey, Dan said everything at Rise is free, which is not completely the case. And you don't have time to use things. People say that a lot about a gym membership. And continuing with that gym analogy, where Paolo had that do it all by myself, do it with strategic consultants, or outsource it entirely, that line of demarcation is kind of, we can tell you what exercises to do, we can build you a meal plan, we can even give you tips on how to improve your form. But if you say, look, I don't want to do any of that, I just want plastic surgery, we have options for that too. And that is kind of that line of demarcation. So we have a great team here with a lot of experience in both the Rise Analytics platforms and working within credit unions. From here on out, I have polled my team and I've said, what have you been talking with credit unions about lately? And we're going to walk through a bunch of different case studies in what our various team members have been talking to credit unions about. So I'll start with Mandy Zerbrick. She's the former chief marketing officer at GTE Financial. She was there for 17 years. She focuses on everything that you can think of from a marketing perspective: member experience, branding, segmentation, upsell, cross-sell, usage. And here are some things that she's been doing with credit unions. I'd say the thing that Mandy does most frequently is meet with credit unions to look at their predictive insights within our platform and understand where the best actions come out of those platforms. She has the benefit of looking at trends within the individual credit union, but again, understanding how they stack up against their peers. And once we see that, you can start to break down, when you think about next best product, next best action, think about opportunities for high value campaigns. Where can we deploy campaigns to create the most value for both the member and for the credit union? So walking through next best action, not just for the member, but for the credit union to continue to engage with those members based on the results of this predictive modeling. Things that, as a day-to-day chief marketing officer, you probably don't dive into, but from a former chief marketing officer whose sole objective is to understand the Rise Analytics software and how that plays into the marketing role, we're able to go in and fine-tune, hey, what is the data showing us and how can we act on that data to capture as much market share as possible. So from there, she works with the credit unions to define those campaigns, focus on areas, like I said, to create the most value. And then that's something that the credit union can choose to execute on their side. We can also help with that execution. But one way or another, we also have the ability to prioritize next steps, look for areas for improvement. Predictive modeling is pretty complex. There's a lot of data that's required. Sometimes we see data points that are missing and could improve the results of the next analysis. And she's able to, once she figures out those quick wins for the credit union, say, hey, if you also had these 3 data points, here are other things that we can do with that data to capture even more market share. Another thing about that peer comparison, I've been doing this for 15 years, looked at hundreds of credit unions' loan data sets, and the one benefit of experience working with lots of different credit unions, or one additional benefit, is being able to recognize the difference between significant findings that are organically there based on the data and findings that may be more so the result of a data anomaly. So those are things that we can help with in addition to just the day-to-day business context expertise. Mandy is also a CRM expert and spends a lot of time working with credit unions to optimize the workflows for member communication. So we had a credit union, it was Credit Union 1, that was preparing to migrate from one CRM to another. And the challenge that they faced was trying to figure out, how do we keep the communication cycle moving using the old CRM while optimizing and migrating to this new CRM? And this dives into the do it for you approach, but Mandy was able to come in and help Credit Union 1 create those workflows and manage that migration to the new platform. And then strategically, this being something that could be done consultatively as well, talk the credit union through, how do we create a communication loop that's based on actual member activity, tracking that activity, and that not only spams the member with marketing offers, but cultivates a more meaningful relationship with that member through a combination of not just that marketing stuff, but also value-added content. So to give you an example, let's take indirect members, right? That's like the golden egg for credit unions. How do we make them more sticky as members? They start by being welcomed to the credit union. They're given information about the credit union, might not even know that they're credit union members as part of getting that loan. They'll get some information on the auto loan, and then the member's activity is tracked from there. They're sent an invitation to online banking. If they enroll in online banking, they go down a different communication channel. If actually one specific concern of the credit union was the time that it takes to make sure that these members have uploaded their insurance requirements for the loan, and incorporating that into the workflow as well. But creating a combination of information about your loan, other value-added content, and marketing materials that cultivates that relationship and makes it more likely that the member is going to open an email that comes from Credit Union 1 than they would if all they got was marketing, it was pure marketing materials. So let's talk about Ars Dragan, who has been in the payment space for 20 years, most recently with Oregon Community Credit Union, prior to that, Orange County Community Credit Union. He's been in payments for a long time. He also is a collections expert, but where he spends his time are things like card reward programs, ACH and real-time payments, looking at how do we maximize our card usage and interchange income from our members, and like I said, collections management. A couple of weeks ago, we tasked him with an interesting job, which was to find a credit union, or we found the credit union, excuse me, that was interested in learning more about what their platform is telling them about their payments. And he dove into the data, which we typically do as we prepare for a strategic consultation, because we don't think of this as a fact-finding journey. We want to provide you with value right out of the box. So he fell upon ATM usage and looked at improving member experience. How do we optimize our ATM placement, our cash inventory, and evaluated that ATM usage over time. And what he saw was that this credit union had a ton of growth within their ATM usage, both in terms of withdrawals and within deposits, but that the majority of their usage was coming from off-us, what they call off-us non-member transactions. There was still growth in the member transactions, but the lion's share were from non-members. And there wasn't a commensurate increase in the fee income that the credit union was seeing as a result of that increase. So ultimately, what you see here is a potentially inefficient use of your ATMs, where you may have longer lines and have to carry more cash in those ATMs for services that are being provided that aren't benefiting members, and they aren't translating to additional fee income. So helping the credit union understand that helps them to, like I said, manage the usage of their ATMs, potentially considering member-only ATMs and how the shared branching, or if the shared branching is benefiting them as a credit union. On the payment side, we also spend a lot of time thinking about how do we grow the portfolio. We've run credit line increase programs for many credit unions. This is a case study we have with Michigan schools and government, where they were able to give 29,000 cardholders line increases, and the 90-day growth in balances was 21 million bucks. So the performance was quite a bit better even than we expected. And there are two ways we can do this, right? We can fully outsource this type of solution. We have solutions for this in-house, or as you're developing campaigns, we are here to talk through, hey, what attributes do we look at as we're trying to perform this internally? How do we create a program that we're going to execute upon that brings us the most value? So it's not always us doing it for you. It can also just be general Q&A on how do we get the best bang for our buck doing it ourselves. John Wagner in lending. I've been working with John for 6 or 7 years now. The previous 25 or so, he was in lending. He was previously the chief lending officer at Heartland Credit Union in Wisconsin. And he focuses on credit risk, underwriting, forecasting, and a lot of loan profitability. That's something that we spend a lot of time evaluating. With delinquencies and charge-offs up at credit unions, I think this is going to be a renewed area of focus if it hasn't been for you already. And a couple of things that we've done. We worked with a credit union that came to us and they said, okay, we have a lot of unsecured loans. Not only that, we have a lot of small dollar signature loans. And we're concerned that the profitability is going to get eroded for those loans, not just from additional charge-offs, but from the costs of underwriting and funding and approving these loans. So using our software, we work with them to set some assumptions for underwriting costs. We have the data for charge-offs, so that piece gets easy. And we segmented that by original FICO tier to look at how much money they were actually making on their unsecured lines. Now, the visualization here is demo information where it looks like we're pretty profitable, where we've got the interest rates about here, 951, and then the stacked bar, the stacked color bar, are the costs that it takes to underwrite those loans. What we found with the credit union that we work with was they were losing a little bit of money on this portfolio segment, but they also felt like it was very value added in terms of keeping these members away from more predatory payday loans. So they cut back on marketing this type of product. They didn't get rid of the product at all because they did feel like it brought value to their members. But understanding that in the context of the business decision is very important. The question may not be, are we making money? It may be something more granular, like how do we set our risk-based pricing tiers? So we can do that same sort of look where we help the credit union set their assumptions for costs and see where there are increases in the cost structure of the portfolio segment, because they're trying to determine, hey, where should be the cutoff for an A+ relative to an A paper loan to a B? And you can see in this example, we've got 10-point buckets in our credit scores. Excuse me. Between 730 and 740, it looks like there's a pretty decent increase in costs. The credit union appears to have a cutoff around 730 and 740 because you can see this little stair step here, and help to validate that their risk-based pricing tiers are working the way that they say they are, so that each member is paying the right amount proportionally to their credit risk. And then there's me, the one with no credit union experience, but a lot of experience talking to credit unions. I focus on loan analytics alongside John, but also finance, regulatory, and compliance risks, looking at CECL, current expected credit losses, concentration risk, stress testing, and fair lending. 2 weeks ago, I had a credit union that came to me and said, hey, we've breached our concentration limits on our auto loans, and we're trying to figure out what to do. Do we tighten our underwriting criteria? Do we sell some loans? Or do we potentially increase our limits? And if we're going to increase our limits, how do we support that decision to an NCUA examiner? So there's two things. We want to make sure that this credit union has the capital adequacy to increase their limits while still being safe and sound. And because we're already above that threshold, make sure that these are profitable loans for the credit union. So the starting point there, or the first point, is looking at that profitability and making sure that these are loans that the credit union wants to continue to grow. I talked through that a little bit in the previous case study, but then in determining, do we have the capital adequacy or sufficiency to increase those limits? We did that using our loan analytics tool and quantified a value at risk for the portfolio based on probability of default and loss given default, and then ran various stress scenarios for the credit union. So developed assumptions for what do we think the worst economic outcome possible is, so that we can evaluate that safety and soundness, and then benchmarking that against their current net worth to see if they have that adequacy or that capital cushion to continue to grow their loan portfolio. We rolled in other shocks that the portfolio may have, things like interest rate risk. We layered in as well asset growth targets and things like that, because as your assets grow, your net worth should grow alongside with it, to prove out that that credit union had the ability to take on additional strategic risks to serve their membership. And same credit union, different use case. I had the opportunity to sit in on a meeting with their NCUA examiner to talk about the risk of their loan portfolio and future trends as the examiners were walking through their checklists and work items for concentration of credit risk. So lots of things that we're able to do. I think this job is great because you never know exactly what's going to come across your desk. We've had lots of other interesting discussions, things like talking about rewards programs, a credit union that says, hey, we don't love how our rewards program is working. What else is out there? Can you help us better understand what might be available to us as a credit union? I mentioned we look at fair lending. We offer software tools for that, but it's also slid into more reviewing the documentation that a credit union has prepared for their fair lending exam from the NCUA. We spend a lot of time looking at things like auto dealers. How are our dealers stacking up against each other in terms of profitability? Who's sending us the best deals? John Wagner even had a conversation and developed some tools for a credit union covering climate change risk and the analysis of wildfires and rising floodwaters and how that might impact their real estate portfolio to understand the impact of climate change. So lots of unique conversations that we've had with credit unions, but I'll end by saying most of our conversations with credit unions are more informal Q&A, where either a credit union doesn't even know exactly what they're asking for, or they've just got a couple of ideas they want to bounce off us and get our feedback on. So the scope is pretty broad. And if you just want to chat and talk about, hey, how do we stack up against other credit unions? We've got lots of public records tools that we can use, ranging from the 5300 to the Home Mortgage Disclosure Act, LAR registers to walk through approvals on mortgages. So lots of tools available to us, and we are here for you. I know most of you are clients of Rise, so we're here for you to help, or we're here, for you to be of help. Yep. So that's our spiel. We've greatly improved our value proposition to credit unions over the past 4 months through the creation of this team. I say that not just because I lead the team. Our fearless leader, Paolo, has said the idea to create this team, and I love what we do. So that's it from us. Any questions?
Yeah,
Dan.
thank you both Paolo and Dan. As we open for questions, I think I can start us off just with some that I have. And for anybody who is interested in asking us a question, there is a Q&A box at the bottom of your Zoom. Go ahead, click that, and you can type some stuff in. But to get us started, Dan and Paolo, if a credit union is interested in working with Rise Analytics, do they have to come to the strategic consultants with their own ideas, or can Rise Analytics help evaluate a credit union's needs?
We can absolutely help evaluate the needs of the credit union. And it might not even be evaluating the needs. It might be more so just walking through a performance report from our Form 5300 peer analysis and seeing how you stack up against other credit unions, talking about strategy moving forward and kind of what the best plan of action is for the credit union. So anywhere from specific needs to just general kind of strategy session and looking at the financials, we can help in all of those ways. Yep.
Awesome. We do have a few coming in. Somebody's asking, are regular meetings scheduled with the implementation manager, or is it on a as-needed basis?
Yeah, I can answer this question then. Yeah, I mean the regular and the implementation team follows like a tight schedule for implementing the services. As I was mentioning in my part of the presentation, it's really a team effort. There is the ambassador, which is the first person that is interacting with the client, and then the ambassador and the implementation manager working together with the client to go through the implementation step, and there are regular, potentially weekly meetings that are happening between the ambassador, the implementation manager, and the client to really implement the services as fast as possible and to the full expectation of the client. So there is a project plan, well defined, very detailed for each of the solutions that actually be implemented.
All right, thank you. Going down our list here of what I'm seeing people pop in. Okay, I see somebody's asking if they have to pay extra to consult with a member of the strategic consultant team. It says that doesn't align with a product that they might have already purchased. For example, can I speak to your member services expert if I'm only using Cecil?
We are available to all Rise customers. So all strategic consultants are available to all Rise customers. If you're a Cecil customer wanting to talk to Mandy, that's 100% something that we can accommodate at no cost. And if you're a data warehouse customer wanting to talk about a Cecil calculation you're doing on your own, I am happy to discuss that as well.
Yeah, if I can add, I think we actually encourage the possibility for our client to use the full potential of this team across multiple domains, because I want to go back to our mission. Our mission is really empower the use of data and insights to credit union. So that even if you're just using one specific product, which is in a specific domain, we highly encourage and enforce the possibility for our customer to use multiple experts. Multiple different type of experts across our consultant team.
All right, thank you. We are actually at time, and I don't see necessarily any more questions coming in at the moment. Dan and Paolo, are you okay if I close us out?
Yeah, it sounds good. I mean, there is only one, just final kind of wrap up here. I know that we are out of time, but again, want to link again to the metaphor of space, spaceship or space travel. I mean, it really takes a village to be able to send like somebody on the moon or like on a space travel, and that's essentially what we are trying to replicate here at Rise. I mean, there is multiple teams here that are supporting our client experience, and Dan is like the tip of the spear of our organization with this team of experts. So I really, I hope that today we're able to kind of show you, what is our mission, how we are executing our mission. I mean, really with the objective of empowering and lifting the credit union industry to a next level, to a next planet, which would be fully automated use of data to drive business outcomes. So thank you for your time and thank you for your interest. And if you have any additional questions or you want to get in touch with Rise, feel free to reach out to me or Dan or our website where you can find the information for like a demo or a presentation.
Awesome. Thank you both. So I'll go ahead and I'll close us out.